rise to thank His Excellency the President of his address at the state opening of Parliament. Acknowledge the presence of the Honourable Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, honourable members of both sides of the House, and all Fijians who are following our proceedings at home and abroad. I also acknowledge the past and present, whose ancestral land is home to this distinguished institution, with its rich history and tradition that form the foundation of our governance. In addition, I also acknowledge all women in Fiji, the Nana, the Nau, the Ngai, the Auntie, the Gigi, all daughters, nieces, and granddaughters, on the recognition of International Women's Day last week. I say to each and every one of you, Pinawalebu na loma bakatina, and loloma kelevisusu. If it wasn't for you, our mothers, we wouldn't be here today. And to our children, our girls, and our nieces, keep striving to break those glass ceilings. Happy International Women's Day. This day belongs to you. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also wish a belated Happy Father's Day to all fathers and acknowledge the celebration of Harvest Sunday across our communities. Mr. Speaker, sir, you may allow me to respond to Vijay Nath's statement regarding the lack of government presence in the maritime areas. A villager from Ngau, Lebukai Ngau, Maitogu, Samuni Rukini, was recorded in an interview when he was asked about government services. This is what he said in Fijian. Nabinaka ni ngau ni salatungo e ngau, e rau ni indo e nrevo tu e mbombo tunga. Manifest the spirits of true Kailo Maiviti. Basically, it says, good condition of the road, you can even close your eyes and drive across the island. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's not only about roads. In the Ministry of Justice, in 2022, there were only 17 Justices of Peace. 2024 increased to 23. In 2025, 28, additional 15 will be having sworn in this year. That means, come the middle of this year, there will be 44 JPs. The coalition government truly relies on the principle no one should be left behind. I stand in solidarity with the Honourable Prime Minister and my fellow parliamentarians in expressing my sincere appreciation to His Excellency the President for sovereign nation Ratu Naiqama Lalabalavu. H.E Ratu Naiqama for his insightful address which opened the 2026 session of Parliament. His Excellency address was reflective, was measured and forward-looking. It invited us to lead with wisdom and call upon to examine our past, confront our present realities, and shape a future that is fair, stable, and united. Today, I would like to highlight a central pillar for His Excellency address, the review of our Constitution. I do so, Mr. Speaker, sir, also be addressing the House in capacity as Acting Minister for Police. Our Constitution is not an ordinary statute. It is a supreme law and establishes the architect of the nation. It distributes power, protects rights, and defines the relationship between the people and the government. And as these things change within time and situations, the Constitution becomes a living instrument and must endure and also adapt. These were the sentiments of His Excellency when reminded us that Fiji has journeyed through 4 successive constitutions. Each emerged from its own historical context and reflected the aspirations, the tensions, and the compromises of its time. That constitutional evolution demonstrates that constitutionalism in Fiji has always been a work in progress. The real question is whether the Constitution continues in its current form to fully reflect the sovereign will and the lived realities of the people of Fiji. Where there is perception that aspects of the Supreme Law are not born of broad-based participation or consensus, it is the duty of responsible government to open the space for review. And with being said, the intention of reviewing the Constitution did not emerge overnight. It has been a process unfolding through national conversation, institutional engagement, and lawful process over several years. We have seen real growth in conversation about our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is something worth recognizing. Our citizens are seriously thinking about their future, and it's reflected in the growing civic conversations about the Constitution. Academic institutions such as the Fiji National University, in partnership with the Australian National University, hosted a number of public forums over the past 2 years exploring constitutional change in Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir, even with this August House, we have not shied away from confronting the question of constitutional review. Honourable members will recall that last year we debated and voted on Constitutional Amendment Bill 2025. That bill did not secure the required majority, but its introduction demonstrated something important, and that is the elected representatives were prepared to engage directly with constitutional questions where they believe reforms was necessary. Democracy was allowed to function. We debated, we voted, and we respected the outcome. And when questions arose about the proper constitutional pathway for amendment, when there was uncertainty about interpretation and procedure, we did not attempt to resolve those questions politically. We turned to the proper constitutional guardian of the interpretation. We turned to the judiciary. That is how the separation of powers is meant to operate. In accordance with the constitutional framework, a significant reference was made by Cabinet to the Supreme Court of Fiji last year. The Supreme Court revisited long-standing questions regarding the validity of the 1997 Constitution and the interpretation of the amendment provisions under the 2013 Constitution. In doing so, the Court discussed Fiji's constitutional history and made a number of important observations about constitutional continuity, the issue of sovereignty, and the amendment procedures. The Court observed that the 2013 Constitution bore what is described as a democratic deficit. In that sense, it was imposed rather than directly chosen by the people. In addressing the amendment provision, the Court interpreted the relevant threshold in a manner it considered workable, reading them down to the, quote, extent necessary to make democratic control possible, unquote, while preserving constitutional order. Beyond the judicial reasoning itself, this Court references demonstrate that when constitutional uncertainty arises, we must submit to the rule of law. We do not step outside the constitutional system. These Supreme Court references show the constitutional question in Fiji are being addressed through institutions like our courts, or through our parliament, or some other legal structured process. Mr. Speaker, that in itself is a sign of democratic maturity and progress. In addition, early last year, Cabinet approved the establishment of a Constitutional Review Commission. Its mandate is to seek the views of the people of Fiji in all their diversity about what kind of constitutional framework they wish to see for the future. This marks a new structured phase in our national dialogue, one which is grounded in participation, transparency, and national ownership. To further coordinate this work, the Cabinet Subcommittee on the Review of the Constitution was created to ensure policy coherence, legal compliance, and structured oversight of the review pathway. In addition, a draft National Referendum Bill 2025 has been prepared and is currently before the relevant Parliamentary Standing Committee. This bill is critically enabling measures as it establishes the legal framework necessary to conduct any national referendum, including one required under the Constitution for its amendment. By putting this framework in place, we are ensuring that it is the coalition government, where people are called upon to decide on constitutional change, the process will be transparent and grounded firmly in law. Mr. Speaker, sir, when one considers all these steps we have taken, the debate in this House, the votes taken and respected, the recourse of the judiciary for constitutional clarity, and the establishment of a Constitutional Review Commission, the creation of a Cabinet Subcommittee, and the preparation of the National Referendum Bill, a clear pattern emerges, which in that government's approach, both thus far and going forward, in relation to the review of the Constitution, is guided by three foundational commitments. One, respect for democratic constitutionalism. Two, adherence to the rule of law, and finally, meaningful public participation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I reflect on this statement of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition delivered yesterday, especially where he asks whether the challenges faced by our nation over the years lay in constitution, politics, or in leadership. That is a fair question given our constitutional history. This is a reminder that the commitment of leaders and institutions to uphold the rule of law and democratic values determines whether the Constitution succeeds in practice. Finding of the Supreme Court confirms that the Constitution was drafted by only two people with minimal public participation. Let me assure this August House, Mr. Speaker, we will not discard nor destroy any document or draft constitutions. Rather, they should be carefully viewed and thoughtfully considered. That is why any discussion on constitutional reform must be approached with responsibility and honesty. And on that note, let me assure this August House, the people of Fiji, any amendment process will be lawful, transparent, and consultative, and be guided at all times by national interest. The government will be responsible and honest. It will follow the law, it will follow the Constitution and the decision of the Supreme Court of Fiji delivered on the constitutional reference last year. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm currently standing the Honourable Minister for Policy and Communication, who will personally respond to His Excellency the President's address upon his return. We will deliberate on a constitutional future. We must also confront the urgent realities of our present. One of the most pressing of these realities is the growing threat on illicit drugs. This is not an abstract policy issue. It is a lived crisis affecting families, communities, and young people across our nation. We are seeing the increase of prevalence of synthetic drug use, while law enforcement agencies continue to record significant seizures. Fiji's geographical location along key maritime routes make us vulnerable as both a destination and transshipment point for transnational organized crime networks. Our proximity to parts of Southeast Asia and America further heighten this risk. His Excellency the President rightly acknowledged the important role played by the Fiji Police Force, Fiji military forces, and other enforcement agencies. The Benua failed leaders in confronting this crisis. The fight against drugs cannot be left to law enforcement alone. It requires a whole-of-nation approach. The illicit drug situation in Fiji remains a national emergency. In 2025 alone, more than 2,400 drug-related cases were recorded nationwide. Most offenders were between the ages of 18 and 35, highlighting its severe impact on our youth. Major seizures have confirmed Fiji's exposure to transnational trafficking routes, indicating that our country is not only a transit point for illicit drugs, but increasingly a potential distribution hub. The growing use of methamphetamine has also been linked to rising HIV transmission rates, making this both law enforcement challenge and a serious public health concern. Mr. Speaker, sir, in responding to this threat, government has intensified its effort to combat illicit drug cultivation, trafficking, and distribution. These measures also include joint police RFMF operations targeting illicit cultivation in interior areas and maritime trafficking routes, strengthen intelligence-led policing to disrupt organized criminal networks, and enhance border security measures to improve the interception of illicit drugs and other contraband entering Fiji. The establishment of the Counter-Narcotics Bureau will coordinate national efforts under the pillars of harm reduction, supply reduction, rehabilitation, and treatment. The Bureau will also support faith-based transformation program, assisting the reintegration of offenders and addicts, while working with relevant government and community agencies to strengthen family and community support systems. Under the Nduabata Community Policing Framework, the Fiji Police Force is also strengthening its national security awareness through preventive programs, including scholastic awareness initiative in schools, collaboration with Substance Abuse Advisory Council, in education institutions. The Blue Light Youth Programs aid at guiding young people, and the Sol Solevaki in Waitangomaki, the Martin II, the Vanua, Kinalotu Initiative, also known as CBM-CMS model. This initiative strengthens community-based coastline maritime vigilance through cooperation between government, the Vanua, and faith-based organizations, and is currently being expanded across coastal Itoke villages throughout Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Policy and Communications is also seeking support for international waters, international partners to establish police maritime forward-based facilities in Lakemba, Sabu-Sabu, Denarau, and Lebuka. Support is also being sought for the acquisition of 4 police patrol vessels, 1 for each of these bases. This capability will enable faster police presence to maritime incidents, strengthen enforcement against trafficking routes, and support unified multi-agency outreach to maritime communities. While strong enforcement remains essential, punishment alone cannot be only our strategy. Responses must also be thoughtful, balanced, and evidence-based. Just last month, during the Commonwealth Law Ministers meeting hosted by Fiji for the first time, ministers discussed comparative approaches to addressing drug trafficking and drug use. Experience from other jurisdictions demonstrate that rigid approaches alone do not always produce just or effective outcomes. Our response must therefore address the full reality of the crisis. The war we face is not simply a war on offenders. It is a war against drugs addiction, exploitation, and criminal networks that profit from our vulnerabilities. Drugs are also fueling wider public health challenges, including the rise of HIV infections. Innovative and pragmatic responses, including harm reduction initiative and rehabilitation programs, can play an important role in reducing the spread of disease while creating pathways for treatment, counseling, and reintegration into society. Mr. Speaker, sir, a strong justice system remains the backbone of democratic governance, social stability, and economic confidence. Our laws must therefore remain modern, coherent, and responsive to the realities faced by our people. In this regard, the Ministry of Justice has embarked on a focused legislative modernization program for 2026 under the Law and Justice Roadmap 2025 to 2029. 5 key legislation have been prioritized for review: the Illicit Drugs Control Act 2024, the Sentencing and Penalties Act 2009, the Crimes Act of 2009, the Bail Act of 2002, and the Sexual Offenders 2021. These laws were selected following careful assessment of constitutional considerations, human rights implications, proportionality of penalties, and the need to maintain consistency across the criminal justice framework. Together, these reviews aim to ensure the Fiji criminal laws remain firm against serious crime, whilst also promoting fairness, proportionality, and public confidence in the justice system. Legislative modernization is not merely a technical exercise, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is about ensuring that our laws reflect who our nation, uphold our constitution, meet our international obligations, and respond to the realities faced by ordinary Fijians. The Ministry of Justice will continue to work closely with government agencies, independent institutions, civil societies, faith-based organizations, and development partners. Public consultation will remain central to this process, ensuring transparency, inclusivity, and public confidence. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me assure this House and the people of Fiji, our nation will not allow organized crime syndicate to undermine our sovereignty, security, and social stability. We will confront this challenge with resolve, discipline, and unity. On matters relating to policy and communication, I want to reassure this House and the people of Fiji that our nation remains safe, stable, and governed firmly under the rule of law. Over the past few days, there have been speculation on social media concerning the tragic death of Constable H.E Ratu. I wish to assure this House that the Fiji Police Force has conducted an impartial professional investigation into this matter. Based on the evidence gathered so far, prima facie findings have led to accused persons being charged in connection with the death of the late police officer, who died while performing this duty. The matter is now before the court, and therefore the Court of Justice must proceed unhindered. Justice must be allowed to take its full and proper course. Mr. Speaker, sir, Constable Radangi was laid to rest last Saturday in his home village of Nabingiri, Nabasinga, Mbua. He was a young officer who paid the ultimate sacrifice in service of our nation and whose bravery and loyalty in the execution of his duty will not be forgotten. Let this moment also stand as a clear affirmation of this Parliament that the rule of law shall remain prevalent in the Republic of Fiji. Mr. Speaker, sir, His Excellency the President also emphasized the importance of digital transformation for Fiji's future. As mentioned earlier, the Honourable Member of Policy and Communication will respond later. However, I wish to briefly inform this House that the newly established Ministry of Policy and Communication will launch 2 major strategic documents and a national digital portal next week. This will be launched on Wednesday, 18th March at the Grand Pacific Hotel, and I extend open invitation to members of this House to attend. The initiatives to be launched are the Ministry of Policy and Communication Strategic Plan 2025 to 2030, the Cybersecurity Resilience Strategy, and the National Cybersecurity Portal. Mr. Speaker, sir, digital transformation today is no longer simply a technology matter. It is a foundation to economic growth, national security, governance effectiveness, and societal resilience. Significant developments are already underway with the Ministry aimed at strengthening Fiji's digital ecosystem, cybersecurity, preparedness, and communication infrastructure. In closing, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to extend my best wishes to all members of Parliament. May our deliberations continue to strengthen democracy, unity, and prosperity for the people of Fiji. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to His Excellency's speech.